All right, everybody, welcome in. It's the Monday Recap Pod, Section 1904. Going to start with a couple of announcements here just to get them out of the way early on. Number one, thank you to everybody yet again who continues to subscribe to the podcast. We do appreciate that. If you are new to Section 1904, well, welcome. Check us out, section1904.com. There's all sorts of information there. We will remind everybody what it is and why it is that we're doing this. I'm Darren Smith. That is John Gennaro. So we are here, and this will be a daily podcast. For the most part, it's going to get a little tricky over the next couple of weeks since I'll be doing a little bit of traveling. And yes, thank you very much to everybody who has sent me an update on the widespread power outages in Spain today. Nothing could ever be easy in my life. Hopefully this will all be rectified by tomorrow since I'm working with a very, very tight schedule with Champions League coming up on Wednesday. So thank you. We will have content for you over the next couple of weeks. That much I can tell you for sure. But Section 1904, we are adding things. John, as a matter of fact, I'll let him explain some of the details. John and I became aware of a daily newsletter, and we even referenced it last week on the podcast. And we thought, well, hey, there's a good idea. Why don't we think about something like that? And John has taken the time to put together a newsletter, so he will explain to you how it is that you can subscribe and you can have the newsletter delivered straight to you. It'll be the same with this podcast. And also, and I know that I'm late on this and I apologize, but I promise with all these other things happening in my ecosystem, I will be better at posting on Discord, even if it is just logging in late on a Sunday and rifling off 6 or 7 different posts like I did Sunday night. I will be better about posting on Discord, but I was really, really pleased to see that a lot of people, names that I know, some names that I don't, have taken the time and the initiative to go there and find us on Discord. Whether it's your thing or not, that'll be up to you, but we're going to try to make it hopefully as appealing as possible for everybody so that you can find your own little community here right under the Section 1904 umbrella. So, John, good Monday to you. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I did wake up this morning, check the Discord, and I was like, whoa, there are a lot of messages in here that weren't here last night when I checked. And then, like 90% of them were you just replying to things. But that was fun. It was fun to dig through all of that. The morning newsletter, which my wife dubbed Front Row Seat, and I like. So
that is a great name, by the way.
So my idea was to call it, because Section 1904, my idea was to call it Row 1, Seat 1. And she thought about it, and she's like, just call it Front Row Seat. And I was like, And she was like, it's your front row seat to all the news of the day to get your day started. And I was like, okay, that's good. That's a good tagline. That's what we'll call it.
Really, really good. Way to go, Rebecca.
I'm not entirely sure at this exact moment how someone can subscribe to just that. But what I did was I took everyone who was already subscribed to Section 1904 and just automatically opted them in to this other newsletter, figuring a lot of people were going to like it. If anyone doesn't like it, they can just hit unsubscribe and they're still subscribed to the Section 1904 stuff. So, I'm going to do that. It's very similar to what I did at Bolts from the Blue with the daily links. It's very similar to what I was doing at Mighty 1090 for a little while, which I think we called the Morning Mighty. So it's, it takes a little bit of my morning, but I think it's a really useful tool. I remember every time doing it in the past, people being like, this is great. I feel like I'm up to date on all the news and all I got to do is check my email or whatever. So that's the idea behind it. We keep adding value to this thing, Darren, even though you're going to be, out of the country for, I don't even know how long. Are you going for 2 weeks, 1 week?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
It'll be 2 weeks. But again, I'm going to be going to, I was thinking about this. I will be, unless I'm missing something here, and respectfully towards Padres and Giants, I will be at the biggest sporting event in the world on Wednesday. And then I will be at the biggest sporting event in the world on May 11th. I don't think that is hyperbolic to say that, but that's where I'm going to be over the next couple of weeks. And in the middle of it, I see some tabs there on the Discord channel for travel, for wine.
Yeah.
Maybe my wife will start one for horseback riding, since that's going to be a big part of our trip as well.
Nice.
Maybe there's other ways for us to contribute. So again, I'm not going to ghost. I'm bringing equipment with me.
Yeah.
And John has given me a crash course in how to upload stuff, which I'm learning. Just like Discord, I'm learning. So, I will be sending you stuff. By the time you wake up, you might have stuff waiting for you.
Heck yeah.
How you incorporate it into the daily podcast, I'm going to leave to your discretion. But yeah, I love the newsletter. I love it for myriad reasons, including that it will funnel things write to you that you care about. And also, it gives John an opportunity to ridicule the local headline writers from the Union Tribune. just like, I love that I had to pause briefly. I was like, oh, yeah, okay. John didn't like a headline about Diego Luna, San Diego Football Club's nemesis this past weekend, so he's going to set it on the headline writer.
It's the worst headline I've ever. And like, I'm so happy that my friend Monica doesn't work there as an editor anymore. Because when she did, I would shy against it because she was like, "Hey, being an editor at the UT is really hard." But then at some point she told me, like, the sports guys basically tell the editors, like, leave us alone. You don't understand sports. You don't get the right. And so you kind of were like, hey, I don't think Kraz wrote that stupid ass headline. I don't know. Maybe he did. It's the worst headline. Yeah, we don't need to spend time on it.
The headline is Californian named Diego sinks SDFC in late afternoon match at Snapdragon Stadium. That is, I mean, it's just, it's just not it's not good.
Like, that's the type of analysis you'd get from like a grandmother who stumbled in and went like, wait, the guy on the other team's named Diego and he's playing against San Diego? That's crazy. Like, it's real.
And what is the point of the late afternoon match thing? I don't understand that.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
sure. But yeah, so we're continuing to strap things onto section 1904.
Yeah. Say what?
Yeah. Attach things to add value.
Strap it on, John. Strap it on.
The morning newsletter this week will be free. As with everything else, next week a lot of this is going behind a paywall. So we have now been live. Section 1904 has been live, offering paid memberships for more than 30 days. So all those people who signed up on the first few days, their 30-day trial has now expired. They did not opt out, which they had the option to do during that trial period. And people are actually sending money towards Section 1904 this week, which is really cool. But it means that next week we're going to try and put some of this behind a paywall, and we're going to add as much value as possible so that your $5 a month or $10 a month or however much you decide you want to give us a month is well worth the price of admission.
Right. And why are we doing this? And as we've explained in previous episodes, whether it's here, whether it was Bandwagon Beach, we're doing this quite simply because neither one of us are super convinced that the advertising model is something that is sustainable for what it is that we want to do day in, day out here on this podcast.
Darren.
And I speak from experience on that. Like, I literally just left corporate radio and I've been in radio for the last 20 plus years. And I know people that work there in sales, and I'm not saying everybody's going broke and I'm not saying everybody's going bankrupt today, because that's not the case. But what I am telling you is that the well is drying. And if you're thinking about sustainability, like, I'm thrilled for people that are still making money using advertising in radio, right? We'll just keep it to radio since that's the majority of our background. I'm thrilled for people that still are living those kind of lives. But, I talk to people, I talk to market managers, I talk to salespeople all the time. And I'm just telling you, the future is not bright. So, it's not to discredit them. I mean, I hope they make it as long as possible.
Right.
I mean, I'm doing weekly shows with Ben and Woods. I'm on a radio station each week with SDFC. So, I want it to last. I have everything that I have in my life, I owe to radio. So it's not coming from a position of hatred, right? Sometimes I always felt that way about Dave and Jeff. Like, Dave and Jeff were like really anti-radio because, they just hated it because, they were not in it.
Yeah.
And that's not the case. I walked away super appreciative of it. So it's not for me trying to make its downfall seem like it's imminent. I don't know that it's imminent, but I'm just telling you, like, I don't know. So the other thing that we really wanted to do is give people a piece of ownership. We want you to own this. We want people we want this to be fan supported. We want it to be supported by people here who care about San Diego sports and dig something that's new and different and funky like this, like Section 1904, and it's got a cool name and a logo. We're working on it. So more information coming on that. But I think the idea of you holding us accountable and us being accountable to you is really kind of a cool concept. And, fan supported content is really kind of a cool thing. So that's why we're doing it that way. Also do want to say real quick, just before we jump into the weekend, because this is the weekend recap after all. One of the people who posted on Discord, John, I don't know if you saw this picture.
The guy from Colombia?
Yeah. It looks like barking dogs.
Yeah, but I think he took out all the vowels.
Yeah. I also have interacted with this person on Instagram. His name is Stephen Perry. Posted a picture from an opening day radio show that I did where Marty Caswell's in the picture, I'm in the picture, and Peter Seidler's in the picture.
Oh yeah, that one.
And I will tell you, like, like that one got me. That one got me. But when I saw that on Sunday night, and I will even go as far as to share with this audience that I shared that picture with Shedeur Seidler.
Yeah.
And, I just said, wow, like a listener, longtime listener sent this to me. And, she sent back a very, very nice message about how every one of these pictures, just like really is so touching to her. And people send them to her all the time. I know for some people, what Shedeur might represent is a bit of a polarizing figure, but that's not where I'm going with this. I just want to say, like, she really, really appreciated that. And so did I. So thank you very much, Stephen. And that was really a very, very pleasant surprise for me on the Discord.
Yeah.
So that was good.
Two things before we dive into the weekend. One, that picture, I mean, kind of for me too, like, I saw that picture and it was like, wow, like that was not that long ago, but that feels like a totally different world.
2019. Think about how, like, everybody in that picture, like how different everybody's life is.
Yeah. And then, the other side of it is I saw it and I was immediately like, wait, I take back my stance that men over 50 can't wear a goatee because it looks fantastic on him. He was even one of my examples. I was like, come on, older man. He grew the mustache. The mustache looked great. He looked great in the goatee as well. I had something else I wanted to say that was talking about a thing you were building up earlier, and I've totally lost it. So we can move on to the weekend.
Okay. All right. I'm going to just hesitate real quick here if it pops back into your brain. But it was about fan supported?
Oh, yes, it was.
There you go.
As you were talking, you still have like kind of one foot in the radio industry, just through friends, connections, and whatever, and you hear things, you keep an eye on things, right? I always have one foot in the podcasting industry because I've been in it for about a decade now. And if anyone needs help launching a podcast, fixing a podcast, producing a podcast, go to johngennaro.com. Like, that's kind of what I do on the side of this. I saw a story over the weekend that the podcasting advertising industry is freaking out because all these companies that are dealing with, tariffs and unsure markets and all this stuff have started pulling like future orders and all this stuff. And the article was written, I think the title of it was even something of like, if you are a podcast dependent upon advertising, like now may be the time to rethink that. And I saw that and I was like, this is one of the reasons why we didn't want to be dependent upon advertising, is we wanted our audience to control, the future of the show, right? We want, if they support it enough, we'll do it forever. And it's a lot easier to ask for a bunch of people to kick in $5 than it is for advertisers to kick in all the money they have to kick in to support a show through advertising. Also, over the weekend, I had a couple people in the Discord just like requesting new channels. So like, hey, can we have a channel for this? Hey, can we have a channel for that? And I thought through each one and I decided to grant each one. But there was also this funny moment of like, I don't know, you guys are kind of the boss. You're paying me. Like, you tell me what channels you want, I'll make them. Anyway, I wanted to say, yeah, again, that I'm so happy that we decided to build this way and build a fan-supported show and a fan-supported media company because we don't have to worry about stuff like that. All we have to worry about is, are we doing a good product and is our community happy?
Yeah, I mean, it does. It lets us focus on just making this as successful as possible.
Yeah.
From a content standpoint, which I do believe is the most important part of this. So, I don't know why anybody would disagree with that statement. All right, on to the weekend recap. For the second consecutive weekend, John, we have only San Diego Wave to thank for this being able to defend the integrity of our sports culture. Thank you very much to San Diego Wave for defending the honor of San Diego, the city and county of San Diego. The Padres got swept by the Tampa Bay Rays. SDFC lost its third straight, first ever at Snapdragon Stadium. Lost 3-1 to Real Salt Lake. We'll start with the Padres. Padres are 17-11. I will say I appreciate something that I heard coming from the Padre clubhouse, which is accountability. I think that, I understand that those who want to point out who's not with the team. I do think that the losing is, you can interpret this two ways, I suppose, or you can say that there's room in the middle, that there's a lot of gray area, that the losing is because they are without A, B, C, D, E, F, G, that they're without these players. Or you can say the losing is like, well, listen, you got like $1 billion worth of contracts still active on this roster. And these guys aren't pulling their weight. You have some high priced players who just, most notably, it would be Xander Bogaerts.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of different ways of looking at it. I mean, I really hope that the entirety of this season, that the season success isn't all on 22-year-old Jackson Merrill's shoulders, or that Jake Cronenworth or Jason, like I think it's okay to be like, that's still a lot of talent. That's still a lot of players on this roster. You still have three $300 million players. You still have Dylan Cease. You still have Michael King. You still have Robert Suarez. You still have enough, not that you can maintain a pace set with the best record in all of baseball. And it's not like it's completely unraveled here. It's 17-11, still at the top of the NL West standings. But I do appreciate that at least the public commentary from the Padres is not about, well, we just got to get Luis Arraez back, or we got to get Jack. I mean, yeah, they acknowledge it, but they're not saying that they're losing as a result of it. And I do appreciate that, because it feels like a lot of people that I see out there, whether they cover the team or whether they're just chiming in on social media, seem to be saying that it's more about the players who aren't there. That's the reason for the losing than the players who are there. And I like to focus on the players who are there myself.
Yeah, just a quick aside, because I do think this matters a lot. And I think it's kind of an argument against some of the decisions AJ Preller has made in terms of depth. And honestly, like taking chances at the DH position, the left field position, the catcher position going into the season. Like, he left himself with very little wiggle room if something went bad elsewhere, right? And it's like the catcher position, we weren't expecting offense, and that's fine. But when the center field position isn't giving you offense, and the second base position isn't giving you offense, and the left field position isn't giving you offense, and the DH position isn't giving you offense, because the only halfway decent DH you have is playing first base, where he doesn't, he's, again, it's when you build a lineup that you're like, yeah, we're gonna have like 2 empty spots, but the other 7 are gonna be awesome, and then Arraez and Cronenworth and Merrill are all out. Now it's like, well, now we have 5 bad spots and 4 good ones, and any decent pitcher can pitch around that. So I think it is a matter of depth here, but to your point, the guys that are left are trying too hard. And like Tatis even has admitted in the last few games that he's trying too hard. He's trying to like hit a home run every at bat, because he just doesn't trust that they can build a rally behind him. And I kind of agree with him on that. It's hard to disagree with him on that. Manny's obviously pressing a little bit. But the Xander of it all is interesting, because there was an argument in the Padres channel of our Discord amongst several people that he should be considered for benching, that they should just bench him and go, I don't, just because you're making good money doesn't mean you get to play baseball on this team. And I don't think that's going to happen. But the Xander of it all is interesting, because his offense is never going to blow you away, and his defense at shortstop is just terrible. And it's like, if you want to be a pretty bad defender, you got to be a pretty great offensive player. And he's been a very mediocre offensive player and a real bad defensive player. And I don't know how you fix any of that. Obviously, they're going to hope that he catches fire and he has a very good offensive season. But I'm sitting here wondering, like, is he the option at DH that platoons with Gavin Sheets? Because Yuli Gurriel has been pretty terrible too. I don't know, but I mean, the Xander contract looks worse and worse by the day, and you can tell that it's going to take something big for the fans to turn around on him. Like, it's already almost like an O-Dog situation, where like every time he comes up, the fans are just like, well, he's going to fail because he sucks and we hate him. Like, there's no belief in him whatsoever, and that. I'm sure he feels that, and that sucks, especially for someone who has however many years left on that contract. He's going to be here for a long time, I think.
I have it right in front of me. $25 million this year, $25 million in 2026, $25 million in 2027, $25 million in 2028, 2029, $25 million. I mean, it just goes on.
When does it go until?
This contract does. It was an 11-year, $280 million contract through 2033, John. Yeah.
That's really hard.
It is, and I think the thing that everybody would acknowledge privately, having been around it, is like, yeah, we understand that this thing is probably not going to age well.
Yeah.
Like did they there's this acknowledgement, even if it's reluctant, there is this acknowledgement of like, we understand.
Seems true with Manny's contract to a lesser
Yeah.
degree.
Absolutely. Like, we understand, but we really think that the prime years, the next couple of years, those are going to be the years. And now, the thing that you're starting to hear, and I could tell that Kevin is probably picking up on this because he's in there, AC, because he's in there. I'm not in there as much, but even I'm starting to pick up. It's like, we always knew that this thing was going to age poorly. I don't think we realized that like that day might be now. You know what I mean? Like, that's the part that like I think is really concerning to people, and it's not funny, but like, it's just the way I communicate. But like I think that's the thing. It's like, yeah, like, we get it. This thing is probably not going to look great, and 29 or whatever, and like, whatever. We'll see where we're at as an industry, as a sport. But it's like, man, is this thing already aged? Like, is this already what it is? Or is there any hope for this? And I think that's a startling thing when you hear it. Not just shit talking like, he sucks, bench him, he sucks, release him, right? All that sort of knee-jerky kind of stuff that you hear about Xander Bogaerts. But now, and I could tell too, because I've been reading a lot of AC very closely, because I always think that there's some stuff in there that you have to read between the lines on, and I could tell that people are saying this to AC. And, again, I'm out of it. I'm not trying to be an insider, but it's like, yeah, we knew this thing wasn't going to be great in like 29, but like, man, like it sort of feels like it's not great now, and you're like, oh, at least with Manny, there still is, even though Manny, I think, has been a bit disappointing this year. He's got 2 homers. Like, they're wasting a really, really great stretch from Fernando Tatis Jr. That's another problem here with some of this losing as well. And again, it's not like the sky has fallen. It's 17-11, and there's the Giants and a couple of wins against Bob Melvin. Everybody feels great by Wednesday afternoon. But, there is a little sense of like, oh man, we're kind of stuck here. Like Manny will figure out a way to have numbers. Manny will post. We know that Manny will have numbers that resemble what Manny Machado does year in, year out. Like, there's not that kind of, it's like can we go? Like, can we get it? But with Sanders, like, oh man, like, is this what it is? Because that's a lot of contract left. And that's a big problem. That's a real big problem, because, there's nothing you can do putting a guy on a bench for a couple of days that's going to make anybody feel any better about this. Right. So yikes.
Yeah.
Yikes. Big time yikes.
I haven't dug into like his stat cast to see if he's just like, swinging slower, if he has a slower reaction time, if there's like something that you can just point out and be like, that's why he's not succeeding the way that he used to. But yeah, it does feel a little bit like, he peaked early, right? Like he came up when he was 22 and was immediately good. And he was good with the Padres in 2023, at least numbers wise. But this was the problem with the 2023 team. A lot of people are like, oh, the 1-run games, the manager, they weren't bought in, there was contracts. The thing that bothered me about the 2023 season was everyone got hot at different times, right? Like, Manny would have like a 2-week stretch, but everyone else would be so bad that it wouldn't matter. And like, Tatis would have a 1-week stretch where he looked like old Tatis, and he's hitting bombs and he's great, but no one else would be hitting, so it wouldn't matter. And it feels a little bit like that now. Like, we had those couple weeks where like Merrill was hot and Tatis was hot at the same time. And that allowed, Arise to slowly build into, shape. And it allowed Manny to kind of wait around and pick his spots. And that was fine. And like, if Xander's your like 5th best player in your lineup, I think there's a bigger range that you're willing to live with, right? But right now, he's essentially the 3rd, best hitter in the lineup, or at least 3rd highest paid hitter in the lineup. I don't know. He might even make more than Tatis at this point. And he's just one of the, there's no range at this point. We're like, hey, we need you to be good right now. And it's just not happening. And so even though Tatis is still, he's fallen off a little bit because you can see he's pressing, but like, there's just no one else doing anything. Even when he gets on base, it's kind of like, I don't know, can he steal second and then we sacrifice him to third and then we sacrifice him home? Like, that's some real, like, 2013 Padres shit. Like, you got one good player and you got to play the small ball to get him around because you don't think anyone else is actually going to get a hit or be able to knock him home. And so it just sucks right now. And like, if that dude's career is never going to be, if he's never going to be more than like a 1 or 2 WAR player for the rest of his career, like, that's one of the worst contracts in the history of baseball. And that's
I
hard.
think you're not exaggerating when you say that. And again, here's the whole point. I mean, the point is in that the season is dependent on Xander Bogaerts looking like, late Boston Red Sox Xander Bogaerts. I think everybody understands this was probably a bad idea, right? But like, can it be managed? Putting him in situations where it's not going to. But like at a time like this where you don't have Jackson Merrill and you don't have Luis Ariz, like that's the time where you turn to Xander and be like, hey, listen, man, we're not asking you to carry this team for a summer.
Yeah.
We're not asking you to carry this team for a season, but we're asking you to pick up some slack when we need you. And it doesn't seem like he's been capable of doing that. And that's like the big problem. Like, it's bad enough that you're just going to be like, well, listen, the 280 was a mistake, but I guess we'll have to figure out a way to manage it. And now you're like, hey, dude, like we really could use you. Like, like we don't normally rely on you. We rely on Manny. We rely on Tatis. We even rely on this 21-year-old, now 22-year-old Jackson Merrill. Like, but at a time where we could use you, I don't know. Like, is there any, and he can't come through in these situations. And it's just like, yikes, it's a problem. It's just, and again, like they all knew the contract wasn't going to age well. They're just like, I don't know. This thing feels like it's kind of spoiled way even earlier than like the most, the biggest Xander detractor would have feared, that doesn't turn around quickly. Like, I don't know. I did laugh at AC. He put out his Padre Daily today, which is Monday. And essentially says that Mike Schilt is just lying in his press conferences, which I thought was funny. Because he's like how Mike Schilt is taking all the blame. Mike Schilt is just a classic deflector. He's just always going to deflect. He's just always going to, he's going to defend his guys. And Schilt said, what did he say? Look, I gotta be better. This is Mike Schilt. It's I got to be more better recently. Players are doing everything possible to be prepared, compete, play the game. They're giving everything they possibly have. Nobody's making excuses. If anybody needs to be better the last couple of games, it's me. That says Mike Schilt. Wow. So then AC follows up and says, well, how can you be better? And he goes, I don't know. I got to figure it out. That's my ultimate job. You're like, and then AC goes on to say, yeah, listen, he's just saying what he has to say because he's trying to deflect any attention away from the players. And I'm like, yeah, okay, thank you, Kevin, for confirming what many of us have suspected for a long time. That is mostly just a performance in there in these press conferences. And that most of the stuff that's being said is it's total bullshit. So, thank you for just pointing out that Mike Schilt doesn't have any answers, probably doesn't believe that he can be doing anything else other than what he's doing, but he is willing to take one for the team in a post-game setting that the players, for the most part, are probably completely unaware that he participates in.
I saw a different Mike Schilt quote that I wanted to read because I found a couple interesting things about this. This was at the end of the gamer I guess it was by AC. Quote, listen, it's a good ball club, Schilt said. They had good pitching. The sky is not falling. It's never as bad as it appears. It may feel that way. I can tell you that in this clubhouse, there's a difference between disappointment and like, oh no. We're disappointed, but I can tell you with complete confidence, we're just fine. And this is part of the 162 game stretch. Things happen. Things won't go our way. We keep our head up and we move forward and we'll be ready for Tuesday and the start of the series against the Giants. We promise you that.
Okay.
That tells me one thing, which is he's trying to project we're not freaking out.
Right.
But like, I love that he ends it with like, we'll be ready for the series against the Giants. We'll promise you that. How? How can you promise us that? How? Like, I'm sure that, again, they're not blaming the injuries, but I'm sure he's going like, hey guys, like, you really think I'm going to win starting like Mason McCoy and Tyler Wade and Martin Maldonado, who we'll talk about in a second, I'm sure, every day? No, like we need good players, but just to be like, we'll be ready for Tuesday. Don't worry. We'll take on the Giants. It's like,
I don't know. I mean, what does Mike Schilt need to be doing better? Like, how does he make Randy Vasquez better? How does he, I mean, Xander Bogaerts had one hit yesterday, and it's just like a ground ball to the left side of the infield that went off the third baseman's glove. Like I mean, what are you supposed to do?
I think Xander Bogaerts is legitimately losing them games right now, but they also don't have a team that could really win them those games. I also think Martin Maldonado is just done. Like this feels like a retirement season for him. Like every game he drops like 2 catchable balls. And I don't mean like pop flies. I mean like a fastball on the outside corner. And it has cost them runs. I think it has cost them a game at a certain point, and he's not hitting. And the pitchers that he's catching aren't doing fantastic anymore. So the Martin Maldonado thing has gotten, it has aged as everyone thought it would, and it's gotten there very quickly. Same with the Yuli Gurriel thing. Like these are shots.
But I mean, what are your alternatives? You're only as good as your alternatives.
Right, they were shots worth taking. I'm not gonna criticize, say they weren't shots worth taking. They're shots worth taking, but like, gosh, I hope they have backup plans. I hope they have.
Camposano's putting up some numbers in El Paso, and we're going back to Luis Camposano. I mean, I feel like we've been down this road a couple of times, and the managers have sort of spoken on this without having to say it.
Just make him a DH.
Directly.
Just make it. If no one's going to trade for him as a catcher, just turn him into a DH. He could be Francisco Mejia and just be like, look, we like his hitting, and no one wants to throw to him. He's going to replace Yuli Gurriel as the DH, and maybe teach him first base or something. I don't know, but. Yeah, now
was Francisco Mejia like a good offensive player?
No, but he was good enough. At least that people thought he was good enough that the Padres were trying to turn him into an offensive-minded catcher. And then I think when he got to the Rays, they tried for a little while, and then I think the Rays were just like, whatever, he's a DH. Like no one wants to throw to him.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll see. I suspect perhaps we'll see a change or two by Tuesday, when Padres and Giants square off for the first time in 2025. Always so interesting. And it sounds like Arise, at least according to AC, Arise could be back as soon as Tuesday, which, makes me nervous. I got to admit, makes me nervous. This is, when we're talking about head injuries, there's a couple of notable head injury situations over the last couple of years. Anthony Rizzo, Austin Nola, I mean, this is one where I don't sit around thinking, man, I hope he comes back soon. It's like, I hope he comes back when he's ready.
Well, and
that's the most important thing when it comes to this. You got a guy who's dealing with like some sort of muscle or some sort of ligament. Sometimes you're like, can you get back out there? Can we get you back? Cause we need you. But this is one where I'm like, no, like I can't have a guy standing in the batter's box facing 100-mile-per-hour pitching. If he's doesn't have the ability to focus. So whenever he's back is whenever he's back, but at least according to AC, it sounds like it could be as soon as tomorrow.
Yeah, and this is dangerous. And like, I don't know if you saw Damian Lillard tearing his Achilles last night.
Yeah.
But that was 100% the result of Damian Lillard going like, I have to get back. I have to get on the court. I don't know if I'm ready, but I'm going to make myself ready, and I'm going to get out there because my team needs me to beat the Pacers. And then he blows up his Achilles. It was very similar to when Kevin Durant came back for the Warriors against the Raptors in the finals, and he blew out his Achilles because he just wasn't physically ready. And like, this is the hardest part, is if the Padres were winning games, they were still finding ways to win with like pitching and defense and magic and home field advantage and all that stuff, then Arise would feel empowered to take his time, wait until he's ready. Merrill would feel empowered to take his time until his hamstring is ready. Cronenworth would feel empowered, but instead, I'm positive that these guys are just chomping at the bit, going, I got to get out there. I got to be out there for my team. They need me. They need me out there. They're just losing games, and everyone knows it's because we're not out there. I'm not out there. And yeah, this is the type of situation where one of those guys or all of those guys could end up, coming back earlier than they otherwise would have, because the team just can't seem to win games without them. And I really, really, really hope that the Padres are the type of organization to be like, no. It's a long season. You have a lot of years left in your career. We're going to prioritize making sure you are 100% before we call on you to come play baseball for us. I don't know if they are, but I hope they are.
It's sort of a perfect storm of situation where he's a free agent, so I'm sure not only does he not only watching what it is that we're all watching here, which is a team now that's lost 4 straight and it's lost 3 straight series, I think it is. He's probably watching that and has a sense of obligation, but he's also an upcoming free agent, right? And the best way for him to go out there and earn money in free agency is to continue to perform, because he's a polarizing figure in baseball circles. As I'm just looking up here, because you were asking about some of the numbers. Some of the internal numbers. I was looking up Xander Bogaerts while you were talking about all this. And, always at the bottom of these lists when it comes to barrel percentage, when it comes to hard hits, is Luis Arise.
Yeah.
But that's what makes him so unique,
Yeah.
is that he figures out a way to be successful and get on base a ton. And Xander, by the way, is all the way at the bottom. He's 154th in baseball on barrel percentage. So, it's not even like you can say, well, that's just a bit of
He's
bad
eye
luck.
surgery.
Yeah, and he's been that way for a couple of years because I remember focusing on this over the last 2 years. But that was just a quick one. But Arise is always at the bottom of those lists. But also, when you go out and you win batting titles, somebody's like that's valuable to us. If that's the kind of baseball team that we want to build. So you could understand a guy who's like, oh man, I got to get back there for my teammates. I got to get back there for my earning potential. I hope he comes back. I hope he's great. I do love watching him play. And I just think with head injuries, man, it makes you nervous. It does. It makes you nervous, especially when it's not like, God, that Rizzo one, it looked like nothing. And this was one where this dude was completely knocked out cold. Where, at least as of Friday of last week, I think he was still talking about having bad days. Like he had just had a bad day on Thursday of last week.
I caught that too. That when you're having bad days, you're dealing with some like serious, kind of like long-term trauma stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure I will assume that the Padres are approaching this with the proper amount of caution. It's just, man, like I hate it with head injuries. I guess the other stuff, sometimes you're like, God, how long? Like I know I always pick on Drew Pomeranz, or it sounds that way, but honestly, fuck him. like that's a guy who is like, dude, I mean, are you ever coming back? Like, do you care about coming back at all? And it's just like he just didn't care.
He never came back.
And yeah, I mean, maybe for a bit, but he just was like content to be injured. There are certain guys that are just content to be on the injured list. And, so sometimes, you look at him, you're like, what's the deal? Like what's going on here? But, that's not a situation with this guy. So, hopefully he's back and hopefully he's great. And this is the last that we ever talk about it. But, it just does, it makes you, it's different than these other kind of injuries, which is the long and short of it. Anyhow, off day today. And certainly I'm sure Mike Schilt will spend his entire off day just figuring out ways to be a better manager.
Hey, speaking of off days, also Dylan Cease, upcoming free agent, having a terrible start to his season, but I feel like he had a slow start last year as well. Speaking of off days, I didn't tell you about this for reasons that'll be explained by the end of this sentence, but you and I have been approached by the Padres subreddit on reddit.com. And they asked if we would be interested in doing, they call them AMAs. It's basically a live Q&A, ask me anything. And and I was like, yeah, like that's, I think we'd be totally down for that and just, spread the good word of Section 1904. And they said, okay, well, it'd have to be on a Padres off day. And I was like, okay, well, I think we need a little bit more runway to do it. We couldn't do it today. And then I basically said, like, Darren's going out of the country and he's going to be on an extremely different time schedule for like 2 weeks. So we might do it after you get back, where people can go to the Padres subreddit and do a little AMA with us. And then, hey, if people like it, maybe we can make it a regular feature of Section 1904, where we just like little Q&A with you and I. Maybe the mailbag turns into that. I think I created a mailbag channel on our Discord. I don't know if anyone's thrown anything in there yet, but
I like it.
At some point.
I do. I like it. You can ask me about, although I do have to put this topic to bed forever.
Pants?
About jeans.
Please.
Yeah, I just do. I was back at the outlet malls yesterday, as a matter of fact.
Oh, did the wife get to go this time?
She did yes, she did.
Nice.
We are like in complete panic mode because our flight leaves in less than 24 hours and we have not packed, and we've got laundry in, and I got a haircut coming. There's a lot going on. Yeah, we're totally procrastinated on this. And now there's this outage in Spain. There's this power outage in Spain. So, yeah, we're not exactly prepared. But yes, we were back at the outlet malls, and back through Adidas and back through Express and back through Banana Republic, and another successful afternoon spent at Las Americas down there in San Ysidro. All right, Saturday, Snapdragon Stadium, SDFC loses its third consecutive match. This one, Warren Barton thought it was the worst loss of the year. I still think that was Charlotte. Charlotte was just not competitive.
I think it was Charlotte.
But Warren was on the call. Yeah, Warren was on the call and seemed frustrated with some of the stuff that he was watching. I thought, a decent first half for SDFC statistically.
Sure.
They had a ton of the possession. Their goalkeeper for Real Salt Lake, his name is Rafael Cabral. He had a couple of pretty good saves there. Dreyer had a good shot on goal. So, it looked like SDFC was the better side. And then a terrible, terrible, terrible giveaway from Willie Camado right there. And Diego, some California named Diego.
Some California named Diego. Wait, did you hear Adrian's goal call on that?
No,
It was
I did not. I was literally walking from the press box to the broadcast booth because I was doing pre-half and post, and I left at 45, right on the nose. It takes about 20 seconds to get to the broadcast booth, and they scored, of course, while I wasn't watching.
You should go find it. It was so entertaining because Adrian called the steal, like the bad pass by Willie Camano that led to the steal, and then did someone pass it to Diego Luna, or he just stole it?
Nope, he just it was all him.
So he called the steal, the shot, and the goal, all of it in about half a second. It was so he was like, and the pass, and Diego Luna has it, and go, and it just moved like right on. And it was like, if you were listening on the radio and not watching on TV, like I was watching the Apple TV with the radio broadcast on, if you were just listening to the radio, I imagine you would have been like, what the hell just happened? Brutal.
It was
brutal.
It was and Diego Luna is like, he scored 5 of their 11 goals. As a US fan, I'm really excited about Diego Luna, and I've been watching Diego Luna since he was in the USL. I remember him coming into Torero Stadium and taunting some of the San Diego Loyal fans when he would score. And, he did it again yesterday. He started having some fun with the fans in the stands at Snapdragon Stadium on Saturday, I should say. He's got 5 of their 11, and he scored twice this past weekend, once on a penalty kick. But, you just like, of all the players that you can't just gift wrap the ball to, Diego Luna is number 1, number 2, and number 3 when it comes to Real Salt Lake. And I mean, that shot, you can say the defender should have closed. You can say a lot of things about what SDFC did wrong, but that shot was special from Diego Luna. Just to split those two defenders and put it with a little bit of curve into the top right corner. And then poor CJ has to go and face another penalty kick
every week.
So, you think like, oh man,
that's 3 games in a row, right?
3 games in a row. I asked the PR staff, I was like, can somebody look this up? When's the last time a team had 3 straight penalty kicks against in 3 consecutive matches? Waiting on the reply on that one. 1-1 into the break, though. Chucky scores the first goal ever at Snapdragon Stadium from the spot. That was kind of a cool moment. But, then the second half, I still have a problem with the handball. And I'm not trying to be like a homer here, but I'm very much not. The more and more that we have replay, whether it's soccer or whether it's any of these sports, the more and more replay we have in our lives, the worse and worse I tend to think the sporting events are. I understand the purpose of it, that you want to get it right when you have a game-changing type moment.
The purpose of it is oftentimes, betting, Darren. It's betting. It's absolutely the money on the game.
True. But, like it's effective in certain sports like tennis. It's effective, right? Because it's very simple. Here's the line. It's in or it's out. Like, that's it. But when it comes to this handball, this is what I did with my life yesterday, John. So, there's a handball called, but it's not called on the field. It's called by the video assistant referee, VAR, as it's referred to. And, it's a normal looking play. Real Salt Lake has the ball, and somebody outside of the box takes a shot, and it deflects off Jeppe Tverskov, and it goes up into the air. And they focused on one of the Real Salt Lake players, and you can kind of see him as like, hey, is that a handball? But nobody was protesting too much here. And this is what I did. This happened at 49:37 in the second half. All right. 1 minute and 3 seconds later, the referee blows play dead. Okay. 1 minute 3 later, 13 SDFC passes later. Oof. 13 passes. So CJ rolls the ball to McVeigh. McVeigh passes it to Jeppe. Jeppe passes it to, I have this all here charted. So it's 1 minute 3 later at 53:15. Eventually, the penalty kick is scored by Diego Luna. They showed us one replay angle on Apple TV. And I think that this is the only angle that the referee on the field had. And it is taken from the far side, the north side, all of the actions on the south side. The camera is in an elevated position on the north side above the supporter section, as far as I can tell. It never zoomed in. The play itself, Jeppe, there's a shot that comes in and Jeppe's standing there. and the ball is going to hit him.
Yes.
And his reflexes, his right hand kind of comes up almost to protect his face, and it hits him, bicep, hand, forearm, shoulder. I'm telling you, I cannot tell. I would be objective about this. You cannot tell exactly where it hits based on the replays that we were shown. They showed 8 replays on television. Yes, I've charted all the stuff.
Yep.
8 replays on television. The referee only looked at 7 of them and decided to re-referee this game and award a penalty kick to Real Salt Lake, which was converted, which gave RSL the lead 2-1. Mm-hmm. Why is this so significant? Well, obviously it's a goal. Mike Ibarra said afterwards that he felt the second goal was, quote, a mental hurdle that we weren't able to clear. I've heard a lot. I've heard almost everything that Mike Ibarra has had to say since he's been named the head coach at SDFC, and I've not heard him talk like that at all about a mental hurdle that we weren't able to clear. The rule in Major League Soccer, for anybody that wants to know, is did the player make his body unnaturally bigger? Unnaturally bigger. I have the rules right in front of me, John, because I know you're super interested in this sort of stuff.
Actually,
here's the way: unintentional handball. If a player's hand or arm touches the ball when he has made their body unnaturally bigger, it can be a penalty, especially if the player's in an attacking position. That's not important. If a player is considered to have made their body unnaturally bigger when the position of their hand arm is not a consequence or justifiable by the player's body movement for the specific situation. So, you tell me, am I missing this, or has anybody else looked at this play? Like, if he puts his arm out and the ball strikes his arm as it's on its way, I don't even think that this shot's going to hit the target, but I can't prove that. But his arm isn't out, extended away from his body. It's almost like he's pulling his arm in. And like, under what justification does the VAR official say, hey, stop play a minute later, 13 passes later, go have a look at this. Look at this one replay that we're going to show you 7, 8 different times, taken from the far side of the field, not zooming in at all, not showing you any other angles. Sometimes in baseball, you have to remember this because all we see is what we see through Padres television. There's another television channel that's showing these games, right? The Padres are going to play the Giants. So if there's a replay, we don't ever see what the Giants might have. They might have different camera angles that would show something a little clear. Just something to tuck away because sometimes it's not always clear to us what's happening when it comes to replay. But man, I don't know. I'm very, very much anti VAR. The more we have replay and video replay in our lives, but this one just feels like it was a huge. I don't understand it. It was incredibly confusing. Even and I'm at the match, so I didn't have a full appreciation for this. I was kind of confused trying to keep up with what was happening. But when I went back and watched it yesterday, John, I just don't understand how this turned into a penalty kick situation for Real Salt Lake. I really, really don't.
Yeah, I saw you were ranting and raving about this on the Discord late last night, and then we were texting about it this morning. And I said, like, look, I was like, I don't know what the rules are about incidental contact, right? And you were like, well, has to make his body unnaturally bigger to be called for the handball. And I saw what you saw. I saw him kind of, instead of making himself bigger, almost attempting to make himself smaller to either A, get out of the way of the shot, or B, instinctually like protect his like face and neck from what was a ball that was coming in pretty hot. So I'm with you. I find it hard to see it the other way. When I was watching this, I was very confused as to, I didn't realize it was the VAR official, I guess, who stopped everything and turned it around. I was under the
again a full minute later, like 13 passes later, SDFC is like starting to build up here again in a 1-1 game.
I was under the assumption that the RSL manager was like screaming about this for a minute, and finally they were like, "Oh, okay, we'll like take a look." So it's very weird that just a minute of soccer that was played just, I guess, doesn't exist anymore. And I don't think that you could look at that replay and say he was intentionally trying to make contact with the ball using his hand. Like, I think you could, anyone who makes that conclusion is probably a Real Salt Lake fan. So, I kind of
even unintentional though, like even unintentional, I don't understand how anybody can draw the conclusion that he unintentionally made his body unnaturally bigger. Yeah. Again, now if they're looking at different angles there and I'm off on this, then I'm off. But I'll based on what it is that we saw, even the announcers on Apple TV are like, I don't know, kind of tough to see.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, it's tough to see because the camera's fucking 100 yards the other direction.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, it's hard to see. And you don't even zoom in like you do on some of these NFL broadcasts where you're like, oh yeah, his toe didn't touch the line or whatever.
Actually,
like in an NFL game, like they never really showed you anything at all that would make you completely re-referee the game and award a penalty kick to Real Salt Lake. And again, I know I sound like a homer here, and it's not 100% the reason why they lost the game. They lost the game because Jeppe Turskov, they cannot get him the ball.
Yeah.
They lost the game because they only had 6 shots on targets over the last couple of games.
Yeah.
Here. So, again, these are all contributing factors. But, in a 1-1 game to award a penalty kick there and then have your coach afterwards say it's a mental hurdle that we weren't able to clear, like, I don't know. He wasn't complaining. I didn't see him complaining about the penalty kick other than to say, this has happened 3 straight weeks against us. And it's a lot. Like, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
Now, in Colorado, maybe they I thought that one was ticky-tack. I thought it was clear as day against Andres Reyes, against Columbus. This one, again, like, I mean, I'm just like, where's the clarification from anybody on how this gets awarded in that situation when nobody from Real Salt Lake seemed to be screaming about a penalty kick? Nobody seemed to be screaming about a handball. One of the players, I don't remember which, just was like, hey, is that a handball? And Godoy's trying to talk to the referee, like he's turning away from. I mean, how is this making your position unnaturally bigger? It just, I don't know. I'd be asking for an explanation if I were SDFC on that one.
Yeah,
but
well, and you bring me to an interesting point. Maybe this is sidetrack, and then I want to come back to Mikey. The sidetrack is that, look, I've always been a big proponent of replay. I think it's important to get these things right, but we have reached this really weird place where replay can also get it wrong, which is, I think, what you and I are arguing.
Yeah, I mean, because it's judgment. I mean, it's still up to somebody's judgment what happens in that situation.
Right, but then on top of that, and I linked to these in the front row seat thing I did this morning, like the Nuggets beat the Clippers on a last-second dunk, and they looked at the replay forever and then decided, no, the ball got out of his hands before the clock expired. That's a dunk. Nuggets win. And then they came back like later to do the last 2-minute report, and they were like, actually, we were wrong. It should have gone into overtime. He didn't get the ball off in time. Nothing we can do about it now, but admitting that they did something wrong. And then the Knicks-Pistons game ends with Josh Hart bumping into Tim Hardaway Jr. while he's taking a last-second shot. And, the Pistons coach, JB Bickerstaff, is yelling at the ref, that's a foul, that's a foul. Like, no, it's not. You and I are texting about it. Hey, they've been calling it, physical all game. That's just part of the game. Like, he didn't body bump him hard. Like, I think it affected the shot, but not too much. And then the refs come after and they go, no, actually, that should have been a foul call. Pistons should have had free throws. Like, Tim Hardaway Jr. should have had 3 free throws. Would have changed the game completely. So now we're at a point that, like, again, for betting's sake, what happens? Like, if you bet on the Clippers and the Nuggets win, and then the refs after go, actually, we fucked that one up. Like, do you get your money back? Like, I don't understand. Getting things right has become so important for betting, but now kind of like transactions, like getting things right and the rules of the game have become almost as important as the action and the game itself. And it's like, how many times do we have to bring it back and go like, guys, we're here to watch these incredible athletes do incredible things with their bodies. We're not here to argue about if on a replay, did LeBron James' finger touch Anthony Edwards on the wrist before he went up and missed the last second shot. Like, it's just, it's sucking a little bit of the life and the fun out of the game. And that's, it happened on a kind of similar scale with the VAR thing for SDFC. But Mikey, you have been saying for 2 weeks now that, there's probably at least one person telling Mikey, like, hey, you sure you don't want to, just kick the long ball up to Chucky? You're having a hard time getting it to your midfielders. You sure you don't want to switch up sides and do a little bit of a different strategy? And instead of passing it up the field, matriculating it up the field, you do the long ball and you hope you catch a defender sleeping and you get behind him and Chucky gets a one-on-one. And you keep saying, Mikey's like, nope, that's not the way we play. That's not the way we play. I think the rest of MLS has kind of figured out the way the SDFC wants to play. And I think they've figured out if we just build a wall around the midfielders, they have no other option. They're not going to change their strategy, which means it's probably time for Mikey to consider changing his strategy at least a little bit to get defenses to stop doing that, right?
Except, I wouldn't say that it's 100% Mikey's strategy. I would say this is the right to dream strategy, and Mikey Varis is there to implement what it is and how it is that they want him to coach. But you're right about the midfield. I mean, Yepe was playing, pinch of salt here. I don't mean that Yepe should have been an MVP candidate. But he was playing like an all-star. The first 6 games, he averaged 95 touches per game. Ooh. Had some games where he had 110, 115. The last 3, he's averaging 68, 74, 76, 59 this past week. So, he's the drummer of the band. I mean, he's the guy that really makes everything happen. And to deny him the ball is really to sort of deny SDFC in any sort of buildup. So, he's still amongst the league leaders, but think about that. Through the first 6 games, he was averaging 94 per game. And, one of those games was a game where they didn't have the ball much against Seattle just because they had a lead and they were defending. But the last 3, 74, 76, 59, 59 this past weekend, the league is adjusting. Now, there are little things I think that the head coach can do, but in terms of like radically just dumping a system, they're not going to do it. They're just not going to do it. And, he also will tell you that we're 10 matches into this whole project. And, therefore, we still are learning. We're still learning how to deal with it. We're still learning how to work with it. And, we always suspected early on this season when we had a bunch of wins that there was going to be a time where we were going to face a little bit of adversity. So FC Dallas, by the way, which seemed like a pretty good opportunity, beat Miami yesterday. That's the next opponent coming up this week. Now, they beat a Miami team without Messi and without Suarez and without Jordi Alba.
Yep.
So whatever. But, they did go into Miami and they did beat Miami. They were fully rotated. Inter Miami was for CONCACAF Champions League. But, yeah, I mean, 3 straight is 3 straight, and I feel a little bit bad for CJ Dos Santos that he's had to face 3 straight penalties in 3 straight games. Or 3 penalties in 3 straight games, I guess would be the right way to say that. Because, it doesn't look great when you're allowing 9 goals in 3 games for a goalkeeper.
Yeah.
But, I do think that the focus is more on the attack. I mean, they had
I don't think Dos Santos has done anything wrong. I think Dos Santos is playing as well as could be expected.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, think about the goals that were given up. The penalty kick.
Yeah.
Diego Luna makes an amazing play.
Yeah.
I mean, that's as good a goal as we've seen in Snapdragon Stadium.
Yeah.
Penalty kick. And, then that Junqua, that 3rd goal, that's the goal of that guy's life.
Yeah.
Like that guy will never score another goal like that again in his life. So, I mean, it's not been perfect, but for me, 1 goal in the previous 2 games, and it came from the penalty spot.
My boy,
and that was very crafty from Godoy.
Godoy gets all the credit for that. Thank you.
I love that. Yeah, I love that from him. I mean, it was a foul, and he made sure everybody knew it was a foul.
Made sure everyone knew.
But 1 goal in a couple of games, and it comes from the penalty spot is that's an area of concern right now. And I think you're right to point out that it's just depriving the midfield of being able to boss these games the way they were bossed in the first 5-6 games of 2025. So
yeah,
but man, I just hate the VAR stuff. I just if there's a better replay of it where Yepe makes his body unnaturally bigger than we didn't see it. And it didn't seem like the announcers on Apple TV really saw it either. They just kind of went with the flow and like, yeah, whatever, penalty kick. So anyhow,
what a different couple of what a different feeling a couple of weeks later. Like 3 weeks ago, we were like, man, SDFC is one of the best teams in MLS, and they might have the best expansion season of any MLS team. Like, look at them go. The Padres, best record in baseball, sitting on top of the NL West. They can go 500 the rest of the year and win 90 games. And now both teams are just they can't get out of the mud. It's what sports is, right? That's what sports is.
That's what sports is.
However, I don't know if you have anything else you want to get to. I do have a question for you.
The Shedeur Sanders, the defensive coordinator from the Atlanta Falcons. I don't know this guy from a can of paint, but I think he should be fired.
For letting his son have the phone number, like by act, even if
there just has to be consequences to this.
I think you're right. It made me think about when Dion had all of his jewelry stolen at a game. Do you remember that a couple years ago when he was coaching at FAU or whatever? And he's like, I took off all my chains, put it in the locker room, came back after the game, it was gone. I don't know. I like maybe Dion has painted such a big bullseye on himself that now his son is a part of it. Just 2-3 days of every NFL draft analyst losing their freaking mind and going like, yeah, like maybe the kid's not a top 5 pick, but like Jesus, like I think he went in the 5th, and that's
5th round.
I mean that's I think that's lower than like Dak Prescott went. Like I don't know.
Right. It seemed like a lot.
Yeah, it seemed like at a certain point, and then like I saw people going like, did the Trump tweet sink his value even further? Did you see the Trump administration taking credit for him getting drafted?
Yeah, I saw Caroline Levitt say something about, all I'm saying is, he tweeted and he got drafted a couple of rounds later. I'm like, no, Caroline, that's not really how these things work.
That's one of the funniest statements I've ever seen anyone make. I feel bad for the kid. He went to the Browns where he gets to be like their 5th quarterback. Like,
Mel Kiper gave the Cleveland Browns an A+ on their draft.
Well, they got a top 5 pick in the 5th round, Darren. It wasn't even like a Laramie Tunsil thing where like there was some massive thing that came out during the draft that sunk his. It just seemed like people either didn't like Dion or didn't want to be a part of it or whatever. It almost seemed Tim Tebow-ish, except Tim Tebow got drafted in the 1st round. It was very weird.
Yeah, I mean, the story that for those that haven't seen it is, there was this phone call that was made to Shedeur Sanders at some point. I think it may have been Friday. Not quite sure.
It was in the 2nd
and I don't
round
know.
Friday.
And somehow, some anonymous kid who we didn't know at the time was the son of the Atlanta Falcons defensive coordinator. His name is Jax Ulbrich. And got a hold of Shedeur Sanders' number and pranked him. And it's like, hey, this is Mickey Loomis. I'm the general manager of the New Orleans Saints. How you doing? Yeah, man, you ready to go to work? Well, you're going to have to wait a little longer. And then he hangs up on him. And they recorded this. So instantly you're like, of course they recorded this because they're idiots. And it's not going to take long for somebody to find out who this person is who's crank calling Shedeur Sanders because they recorded them prank calling Shedeur. So you're like, well, you're going to find out real quick who this person is. And maybe this person will be vilified or maybe this person will be lionized. You don't know. Maybe this is somebody from Colorado State. It's going to be like, oh, yeah, we hate the Sanders over here too. So fuck them.
Yeah.
Right. So you don't know which way it's going to go. And you didn't spend a ton of time thinking about it. But you sort of, I did. I was like, what a sad statement. The other part of it, though, is that somebody was filming Shedeur Sanders getting this phone call.
Yeah.
And that's the interesting part, too, because then this also makes me think maybe this is just an environment that everybody operates in and everybody knows the rules, right? Like the rules are that there are no rules. You cannot be humiliated if you're choosing to live in this environment of being online all the time, of being filmed all the time. Maybe this just comes with that territory. I'm not in that space. So for me, I'm taking it from the approach that I don't like operating like that. I don't like having cameras on me all the time. So, this is very much something that I would object to.
Yeah.
But maybe if you're in that space, you're like, hey, kind of comes with the territory, right? This is the first rule of Fight Club is that you're in this all the time. And the Sanders are not known just for being football people. They're also known for trolling. They're also known for being a bit aggressive on social media. So, maybe this comes with that territory, right? Like maybe this is just a younger person's environment, John. I don't know. I did think about that, though, because there is video of Shedeur Sanders getting this crank call that people can go and find. And you can see his face afterwards. He's like, who was that? What's this all about? Mm-hmm. How did somebody get this phone number? Yeah. So I hesitate a little bit before I want to throw the book at the head coach or the assistant coach, because I do feel like at some point there should be consequences for this kind of behavior. But maybe this behavior is just much more acceptable in that arena than I might realize.
Yeah, it's also like, how much do you want the guy to get fired because his kid's an asshole, right? Like it's hard to fire someone just because his kid's an asshole. Like his kid admitted, like, yeah, my dad had his number on an iPad and I went and I stole it, whatever. Which
right.
Who knows how believable that is or not. This is one of the stories along with several others that I want to talk about later in the week when we talk to Bill Hanstock, who covers like professional wrestling and sports. I want to talk about how like sports media coverage and sports is becoming a lot more like professional wrestling, where you do bad things, but in professional wrestling, it's like I'm playing a character, but now people are just playing characters in real life, and it's getting a little out of control. And this is just one more example of that. I know you're on a clock and you have a little bit of a hard out coming up in a couple minutes. I just didn't want to go the whole podcast without asking you. Did you get to enjoy the Barcelona win at all? The Copa del Rey, everything?
Watched the first half at home, and then I watched it in the car on my way to Snapdragon, and then I had to unexpectedly leave Snapdragon Stadium to do the pregame show from the iHeart Studios.
Mm.
So I was able to have it on my phone there, and in extra time, I did see the Jules Koundé shot. It happened right before we were getting set to go on with the pregame show,
Shot.
so I was able to enjoy that very, very much. Yes, I did enjoy that. I thought my out-of-market teams, John, did very well. My in-market teams, not so great. My out-of-market teams, FC Barcelona, Crystal Palace,
New York Knicks.
and the Knicks, who had as enjoyable a win as I think maybe I've seen all season. And it was setting up to be such a disappointing loss, like maybe the worst loss of all time. But that they won that game, even with the controversy at the end, was just such a thrilling thing to see Jalen Brunson. I almost said to the group text, we're done. That's it. This game is over and this series is over. The Knicks were down 10. Jalen Brunson got hurt. Couldn't even put any weight on his right leg. Came back in. Was unbelievable. Made some ridiculous shots. Karl Anthony Towns made some ridiculous shots for his size. I don't know how anybody – we just don't appreciate how good these guys are. And somehow, some way, the Knicks were able to win that game, go up 3-1 against Detroit with a closeout opportunity on Tuesday. That was amazing. Barca was amazing. Palace, to a lesser extent, was great. But yes, I did. I just thought, wow, it's a bit bizarre. My out-of-market clubs are doing well. My in-market teams need to pick up the pace a little bit.
Hopefully they come back around.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, it was great. I mean, the NBA was again, like it was
good basketball.
It was good basketball. You and I were texting during the Knicks game. I was like, literally the rest of my Sunday depends on whatever it is that happens in the final 10 seconds. Like my mood will either be really, really good or really, really poor based on what it is that happens over the next 10 seconds of this basketball game. Because I thought all the effort, all of the willing the team back to victory, like I just didn't want to see that go for nothing.
No, me too. Although I tend to be a little forward thinking just because it's not my team, and I'm like, man, Brunson has basically left every game with some sort of weird ankle injury, and then he has to go, put on new shoes or come back from the getting a shot or something. And I'm like, this is the first round, man. It's like 3 more rounds of this. You want to win a title? Like, can he last that long? I don't know. But then, like, I'm thinking the same thing about Tatum, who every time he falls, he lands on his wrist, and then he's grabbing at his wrist. There was someone else, maybe in the Nuggets game, but like there's all these like really important players. Oh, Jimmy Butler's out because he fell.
Yeah.
Ja Morant's out.
Ja got hurt
because he fell, and it's like
Dame now.
Right. It's like it's the first round, and guys are dropping like flies, and I'm just like, how this is going to be a real test to see how hurt players can play and still be effective. It's going to be a real grind to get to anywhere near the NBA Finals if they're going to keep officiating like this, which I love this style of basketball, but I hate seeing all these guys getting hurt. I was just thinking about Brunson like making it through this, and now he's going to do it again for the Celtics next round. I was like, oh, God, that's brutal.
I just thought like all the effort that it took to get back into that game, to put yourself in a position to win it, and Cade Cunningham hits a 15-foot shot. You're like, God, that was deflating.
How good is
that?
He?
Just was like, it would have been such a difficult loss to get over, given how much they put into the comeback, and you're fearful for all of it. You're like, yeah, I suspect it's going to happen because this is the way sports go. Yeah. Like, it's just the way sports work. But that, same thing. Like Barcelona was a huge favorite against Real Madrid, and they're up, and they seem like the much better team, and then all of a sudden they're trailing. And then ridiculous goal at the end of regular time to at least send it to extra time. You're like, oh man, like losing this is going to feel pretty shitty after all of that, especially with a Champions League match coming up on Wednesday and you're playing 120 minutes, right? Like there's more and more of a push now for just eliminating extra time, but that's a different story for a different show.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you're just like, I hope this doesn't all go to waste. But when it doesn't go to waste, it feels great. When it goes to waste, it feels like the worst. It's just the absolute worst.
It did look like it felt great for Barca fans.
It did, and it looked like it was a ton of fun there in Sevilla as well. So, all right, John, I will be in touch. Stay tuned because there might be more coming here. But again, thank you for everybody who has subscribed at section1904.com. And we will keep you up to date as best we can. I am planning on contributing to the show from Montjuic in Barcelona should they restore their power to this country. I guess the power is all out everywhere. Not great when I just booked a bunch of trains. But we will figure this out hopefully by the time we get there. And sincere thank you to everybody for not just for subscribing, but also for supporting in ways that make us feel like you dig what it is that we're doing. So it'll be back sooner rather than later. So stay tuned and thank you all very much. Section 1904. We appreciate you, and we'll talk again soon.